Hello and welcome to the Pre-Chiro podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Glass, and today we're making a chiropractic student connection out in Florida with soon-to-be Dr. Justin Jones. Justin, can you get us started by just introducing yourself and reflecting on what it was that attracted you to becoming a chiropractor? Where were you at in life? Can you remember that moment? What was it that was really pulling you into this path?
Okay. Opening up with that question there. My name is Justin Jones. I am going into 12th quarter at Palmer College of Chiropractic, Florida. So like you said, at the tail end of my journey here, very excited. And just to touch base on that question, what pulled me into chiropractic school? Where was I at pre-chiropractic school? And I often look back on this thought, and I realized that I was kind of steeping myself in the philosophy of chiropractic without even knowing it prior to coming to chiropractic school. And it started for me in undergrad. I went to East Stroudsburg University, and my major was exercise science. And throughout that journey there was always something within me that knew I wanted to serve, right? To serve people, but I didn't want to wait until I got a degree. Like, I didn't want to wait until, okay, now you finally went through, you have a piece of paper, now you're allowed to go out and serve. And I felt like that's what a lot of students and people get in their minds, is that they go through this journey of becoming a healing facilitator or a being that's going to be of service towards others, but they seem in their minds they have to wait until they get the degree. So starting in undergrad, I realized I had all of this knowledge, all these gems about, exercise science, so biomechanics, how to move the body, nutrition, right? How to eat properly, not only eat properly, but how to get your digestive system to utilize and extract the nutrients that it needs to actually function, right? And I had all these gems, and I was like, let me just start now. And start to see if I can serve with the knowledge that I have. And at the time I was reading Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And this is what I mean when I was steeping myself in the philosophy without even knowing it. And in the book, he mentions these things called universal intelligence and infinite intelligence and innate intelligence. And I remember hearing those words, and I was like, wow, that really resonates. Like, intuitively, I just got it. I didn't really conceptually understand it, but I didn't really have to. There's something in me that just got it. And in the book, he teaches a lot of these things about, like, living as if you already have it. Living as if you already have it, not waiting for it. And, I mentioned before that a lot of people, including myself, I was waiting. And the waiting game was producing anxiety and anxiousness, and even like bouts of depression. I didn't really realize why, but it was because I had this impulse to serve. But in my mind, I limited myself because I thought I needed to wait to get the degree. Now, of course, there's laws, there's regulations, there's rules. I'm not saying go out and break those. We have to still follow those, but there's always something you can do, right, to push you on that journey. So it started at East Stroudsburg. I started like a little business called More Work. It was an online training business with all the knowledge I had so far gained. It was beautiful. I studied Dr. Joe's work very, very intensely. And it wasn't until I got to chiropractic school, right? My journey, which pulled me here, was just to continue that path of service. And I knew that if I was becoming a chiropractor, I was inevitably going out there and serving. And then I get here, Dr. Ben, and I'm like, what's this philosophy class we're in? Quarter 1, quarter 2, they teach it at Palmer, Florida, and it's a philosophy class. And granted, it's dogmatic, and it's kind of puts a little distaste for philosophy in the mouth of students because they have to teach it a certain way. It's just the way it is. But man, they started talking about universal intelligence and innate intelligence. And I was like, I heard this before. And right there, I knew I was in the right place. And ever since then, I've been going deeper into these principles of chiropractic, the principles of life, the principles, the philosophy. And it has forever changed my trajectory in life. And it has allowed me to see the world through a different lens that's more reflective of these healing principles of love, life, unconditional forgiveness and acceptance, the true things that make healing possible. So that's what got me here, man.
Yeah, no, that's deep. And I love how you talk about the importance of students seeing the value that they already have as they're moving through a program to step outside of the program and really help others, really practice expressing themselves in a professional way that may be beyond what they've been told to think that they're capable of as students. I think it's so valuable for you to share that message of like, even though you're a student, you're still a human being that has made the decision that you're going to walk a path of service. So why not find yourself in the service to others while you're a student and learn about how you serve others, learn about your strengths, learn about your weaknesses through practice, through experience, being out in the real world. So can you maybe just keep going deeper with that of like how you took that energy of being a college student who had a side business that really was your passion and gave you opportunities or created opportunities, that you actually carried that into chiropractic school, and the energy that you've been able to bring through your chiropractic student experience, like how that helped you as a chiropractic student?
Yeah, of course. So starting in undergrad, that was I think, I think as humans, we all have like a moment where you have this confirmation or validation that when you put effort into something, there's going to be an inevitable unfolding, and then creation starts to happen. The more you place your attention and energy onto something, the more that thing starts to grow, right? It's like, and then it starts to become successful, and that success starts to breed more success in a way. And you kind of stay in that flow of creation. And that started in undergrad, creating more work. It was like a personal training, like I said. And then, COVID happened and it kind of dropped off. But that energy, like you said, it was a continuation in the chiropractic school. So when I got to chiropractic school, I already had confirmation and validation that I know if I put energy into something, it will start to create. I just have to trust myself. But I've already had the confirmation that it works like this. So it wasn't hard to believe in it. You know what I mean? It wasn't hard to believe in it. So throughout chiropractic school, I got there in in quarter two. We were still in COVID times, right? So there was a big need that needed to be fulfilled with myself, and also the group of people that I surrounded myself with, the brothers and sisters, the family that I have now to this day. It was a collective need, and it was the need to get more hands-on. And that was it. And even when I was in undergrad, the only reason I did what I did was because there was a need that wasn't being fulfilled, right? And it was either three things: wait for the school to spoon feed me it, which probably wasn't going to happen. Go out and find another community where that need is being fulfilled, or go create it myself. Those seem to be the three options. And I recognized that when I got to chiropractic school. Every student may have needs that are not being fulfilled. If you don't know what those needs are, I think it's very important to ask yourself, what's stopping you feeling as happy as you can be, or as excited as you can be in your journey? Whatever is not allowing you to be as happy as you can be and as exciting as you could be, that's probably a need that's not being met. And you should either figure out how to create it or find a community that's helping you get to it. So in my path, the need at chiropractic school during that time was a lack of hands-on. And the group that I was with, shout out to them. They know who they are. I don't want to mention all their names, but they were with me from the beginning, throughout this whole journey of innate artistry master training. And I'm sure getting into that. But we were like, let's go out and create a space that's fulfilling our needs. And it was to get hands-on with palpation and training, because we're students, right? We can't adjust. But there was also another need there, and it was to create a space where there's non-judgment. Because we were in and we were going to all of these clubs, and there was a lot of information at these clubs. Every club, Gonsley Club, TRT, Upper Cervical, KTC, like so many clubs out there, and so much information with different techniques. But there was always like a tinge of like a little bit of judgment. I'm not going to say which clubs were judgy, but it was there. Like, you can't talk about this technique when you're in this club, and it's frowned upon to talk about this when you're here. And if they don't say it, you can feel it. And we saw that dampened the experience for us to learn as much as we could, because it stopped us from expressing ourselves because there was a fear of judgment. So not only did we have a lack of hands-on, but we had a lack of a space where there was non-judgment. And this is kind of how innate artistry master training got created. So to answer that question, my energy from undergrad and moving that creative energy to Palmer, it kind of started to create innate artistry master training because of two needs: lack of hands-on and lack of a space where non-judgment was practiced.
Beautiful. I love that. And yeah, like you, when I was at the end of my second quarter, to me, I had just transferred from another school and came to the school I was at, and they were on both sides of the spectrum. So like they were completely different in the culture, in the awareness of chiropractic. And I felt really bad for other students that didn't have an awareness of the resources that are available to chiropractic students if they just knew what was available. And there's just a lack of awareness, I'd say, across the board to like what's out there and what's available in general within certain schools, because they design it that way. But my experience aside, I created something, you know, and it gave me a lot of excitement, a lot of purpose. It fueled my sort of inspiration to go into classes that might have been a little dry, or I couldn't quite understand why I was learning what I was learning, but I was like listening, like, how does this relate to the mission that I'm on, which is to support students at schools around the world and connect students to the same resources so that we could all share experiences, share this understanding that, hey, we're all different, but let's respect one another, because we have an awareness of what the other person is studying. I think when you talk about these clubs having a little bit of judgment beneath the surface, it's because those students haven't cared enough to take, or had the time to go study all these other clubs and learn that what these other clubs are studying is actually really interesting as well. And they should just respect those people for wanting to dedicate themselves time-wise, energy-wise to something different, which has value. But the problem is students just never take the time to learn about all the different perspectives. So anyway, getting back to the pandemic experience, because I think right now I'm teaching adjusting over at Life West as an adjunct professor, and just observing students in the end of their second year, which means that they did have some experience with the pandemic being blended with chiropractic school. And I'm observing there's some fear there. There's definitely some hesitation when it comes to adjusting. I'm curious if you could reflect on sort of how your club or the movement that you've been able to create on your campus has helped students, maybe the effects of the club on the student culture, and then just also like kind of how you've set it up to accommodate students that are just starting or students that are at the end of their program, like, and what it is. Maybe just kind of give a general overview.
So first and foremost, again, I want to say thank you to the team, right? Because it's not just me. This is nothing without the people who have been by my side and have been expressing and pouring themselves into innate artistry master. And like I said, they know who they are. So if you're listening to this, thank you forever. If I don't say it enough, I'm forever grateful for you guys. What innate artistry master essentially is now, in order for me to kind of talk about what it is now, I have to go back to how it started. Because how it started is essentially it's how it's running right now. And there's really no difference. There just has been an expansion to it. So how it started, I addressed that there was needs, right? The needs of non-judgment and hands-on palpation practice and practicing on equipment. We noticed that if we went to every club and we talked to the presidents of every club, a lot of them really want to teach what it is that they're doing. Now, we thought, well, what about if we created a space where every president and member can come and teach? So that's essentially what I Am Training was in the beginning. It was just a space where a Gonstead Club president would come, start teaching cervical chair, and not only teach it, but teach how to train it on equipment. Then TRT president would come, then upper cervical president would come, and we start to get into these almost like a farmer's market of chiropractic, where you can go to one table and start to hear about a technique and all the ins and outs of it and how to train it, right? So that you can leave with something, so that you have this excitement, but it doesn't fizzle. You can carry it with you at home, because now you have applicable knowledge and you can apply it when you're home. You could buy equipment and train with it. So the only reason that happened, though, was because of non-judgment. And I realized something, and the team, the people that I was with, realized something. What is actually creating the non-judgment? And it was to honor and understand non-separation, right? And this comes from what, like, principle 1 in chiropractic major premise. There's a universal intelligence in all matter, right? And that intelligence is giving properties and actions to maintain itself in existence. And the non-separation principle, we started to really tap into it, not just intellectually, conceptually, not seeing it in a book and being like, oh, that's cool, but to be like, you know what? That's also me, right? I can experience that. I don't just have to read it and think it's cool. I can actually experience non-separation in this major premise. And we realized that the more we focused on that, there is an intelligence that made me, and that intelligence made you. And that intelligence allows the heart to beat 100,000 times a day, and you don't even have to think about it, right? And it's supplying me just as much as it is supplying you, which is proof that me and you are not separate, right there. So right there, if me and you are not separate, then where's the judgment? So we started to focus on what creates the space of non-judgment versus trying to be non-judgmental. It's very different. We focused on that. And because we focused on that, the space started to, essentially started to grow, because now people can come and really learn. Like I said in the beginning, right? There's a little dampening that happens when judgment is felt. I don't care if you're a human being, if you walk into a space and you start to feel judgment upon you, whether you're judging them or they're judging you or you're judging yourself, you start to lack your expression because there's fear. So I think, like you said, right, there's fear with students adjusting and the COVID thing. Like, the fear is coming because there's a lack. They're scared. In my opinion, I was scared to express myself. So moving on then into where I am at now. We realized that it is beyond training the physical, right? In the beginning, it was all physicality. In the beginning, it was striking on equipment. It was doing nothing but training the physical. And we were like, man, we're kind of hitting a ceiling here. Like, a lot of people were getting good, and we're like, wow, there's something else to this art. And if we're really trying to become artful adjusters and train the art of chiropractic, we have to understand what art means. And we're realizing now and more that any form of art is just self-expression. Any form of art is self-expression. So the question is, can you express yourself if you don't know yourself, right? And the answer to that is yes, but we all know what that looks like, and we all know what that feels like. It's very inauthentic. It has a different tone to it. So we focus now. We moved from the physicality. We still kept it, but we needed an extra day at IM for the students to come in and start to get into a space where they can know themselves. And ironically, it's like, you don't really, it's cliche, but in order to know yourself, you have to know what you're not, right? So we created this space now where you can come in as a student and you can get to know what you're not, and then pay really close attention to what remains. Because when you know what you're not and you pay attention to what remains, you slowly start to realize that you are that thing that remains. When you realize everything that you're not, whether it's your lack beliefs, whether it's your limiting thoughts, whether it's your fear, whether it's your doubt, whether it's your anxiety, whether it's your nervousness, whether it's you being shy, right? All of these things that you claim and you think that you are, you have to get into a space where all that's shown to you. And then you have a choice to either indulge in that storyline, to pour more attention into it, or to realize that you can consciously take your attention and place it onto something more powerful, that intelligence that you really are, right? because all of that lack belief, nervousness, doubt, that's all arising because of what you really are, which is this intelligence, this infinite intelligence. It's the container for everything to arise in. But I think a lot of students get lost, and a lot of people get lost into the contents of the container versus recognizing they are the container that holds all the contents, right? And I Am now has recognized this, and we created a space, not created it, but just recognized it, because we're not creating anything. It's already here. It's already available. You have access to it all the time, right? Space, we don't have to create it. We just have to shift into it and recognize that, oh my gosh, it's here already. So we have this beautiful blend now between the physicality, training on equipment, right, and the mental, emotional aspect to the art. And we can blend those two things. And now students can train on equipment and also come into another day and start to train the communication or the self-realization part to the art so that they can express themselves better. And I think the blend between those two things have, at least for me and what I've seen from Try Ones, man, oh my goodness. I've seen these students come in like not knowing fear to pick up a head and shaking, right? To just fully just confident in their ability to serve and their ability to communicate. And I think that was huge for me to see, and just to kind of validate that it is possible to be a Try One or a Try Two or a Try Three or a Quarter One, Quarter Two, Quarter Three, but have this confidence that you have it, that you have it, right? So that's where I am's at, man.
Yeah, and I kind of want to just hold space for you to keep going with like how this can translate out to chiropractic education if possible, how students can apply some of the principles that you just shared, which is at the foundation of the space that you guys are holding for the people that show up. Like, how does that translate into the classroom? How does that translate into the curriculum that every student pretty much across the board has to go through when they're chiropractic students?
Yeah. So going back to that space and holding that space where, because really what the space is, it's a catalyst. I'm realizing this more. It's a catalyst. It's an exam. It's a accelerator, right? And what it's doing is it's accelerating this journey of you getting to know more about yourself. And like I said, we do this because, first off, we have these things called mastery talks, which is just where students can actually get up and talk about an experience that they went through that may add value to somebody else's life. And that's open for every student. Whether you're a lead at IM or not, you have the ability to speak about something in front of a group of people. And it's a fair assumption. I'm generalizing here, but from my experience, I think that the biggest creator of that fear and that anxiousness and that self-doubt is having the public speak, right? And naturally, most people start to feel a little bit like, oh my gosh, all eyes are on me, I'm scared. Those self-doubts come in because they're being seen. So the space is there for people to realize what they aren't. They aren't those negative thoughts. They aren't limited ideas. They aren't those self-doubting things. You know how we know you're not those things is because it doesn't feel good to believe in them. If it doesn't feel good to believe in them, then clearly it's not true, right? There must be something else, another way to see it that's more reflective of nature of life, right? But if you do not go into a situation, I don't care if it's I don't care if it's any, you have to put yourself in these situations, whether it's I am training or not, right? Where you feel an impulse that wants to come out, you feel like you want to say something, but you stop it because you're scared of the judgment. You need to put yourself in situations where you just say it, where you don't resist that impulse. So how does this relate to chiropractic school? We're finding and we're seeing that a lot of the members who are coming to IM are just gaining a greater sense of confidence and conviction in who they are, because we're learning more about what they're not, because they're stepping into the space where that can happen. And they're going throughout their life, their journey, and their school process. And the things that typically sway chiropractic students, like boards and numbers and grades, are starting to not sway the people who have been practicing these principles. they can remain calm and still within the fact that they know who they are. And although the external experience is arising, the internal state of being stays calm. But it doesn't happen without effort. I think a lot of people just take pictures of it, right? They hear about it and then they think that they're, oh, I can do this. And then it doesn't work out. So then they have a distaste for that process of meditation or self-realization or whatever you want to call it. But they have failed to put in the actual effort. It takes effort. Just like training the art, it takes effort. You have to become a master at it. Hence the name, innate artistry master, right? The mastery of it is continuously going back and applying the principles. So I think it's a continuation. When you leave training and you go out in real life or the world, you have these skill sets that you've learned and acquired just because you recognize that this is the space where I can actually train it, because this is the space where all of those insecurities arise. But I feel one thing that allows me to express myself, and that one thing is non-judgment. So again, the only reason this works out is not because we're copying and pasting from other people or doing something else. It's because we're following the principles of life, and it's non-separation. It's the law of one, right? This one power, and that comes from chiropractic. I mean, that comes beyond chiropractic, I'm sure, but my first time really learning about it was reading the major premise and then hearing Stevenson say, you are your innate intelligence and your innate intelligence is you. When I heard that statement in the Green Book, in the chiropractic textbook, my whole life shifted. My whole life shifted. So I think as a student, you should find a group, find a community where these things are being trained and practiced. If not, create your own, because you have the availability to do that, right?
I love that message, man. That's called movement building. That's called creating a vehicle, like what you said is an incubator for people to gain exposures, have experiences, and then be given opportunities to self-express in whichever way they want to self-express. And just like you said, like holding that space. Go ahead.
No, you said whatever way they want to self-express. That's huge, right? Because right there in that statement, whatever way you want to self-express, it just took something limited and made it unlimited, right? Expression is infinite in all of its possibilities. And the only thing stopping your expression is you, right? The only thing stopping what wants to happen is you. And you have to ask why, right? Because it's like putting something on a teapot, right? Like the more you create that pressure internally, the more it will scream, and like the more it just wants to happen. And I think people need to realize that they have to express themselves and recognize what impulses are restricting, because it's restricting what really wants to be said, and what really wants to be said can change lives. And we're here on this earth to change lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just want to add that when you get out into practice, you have to develop a trust in yourself, and that comes from nowhere else except for that hard work and dedication and commitment to yourself to be the best version of yourself based on the training that you undergo, the people you hang out with, the amount of seriousness you put on this idea of becoming a chiropractor who's going to go out in their community and support others who are going through challenging times, and meet them where they're at, and then invite them to come to where you're at, but also just have this this exchange, this play, this dance, shall we say. It's so vital that students at that stage get an experience of what it's like to step out of their comfort zone and like have to kind of meet people where they're at, and then also be authentic and express themselves in a way that is not like, they're not coming away from that experience like, gosh, I wish I was this way, but it's like, gosh, like that's how I am, and giving them opportunities to reflect on these experiences that are so vital, of like putting your hands on somebody's neck, or setting up on somebody in front of a group of people, or having a communication where, maybe it's uncomfortable, maybe you're role playing, maybe you're doing these mastery talks. But yeah, these are the types of experiences that, like you said, when you go through national boards, you've gone through so much, like with your friends leading up to that you're like, hey, this is going to be okay. No matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. And yeah, I mean, anyway, just
No, I agree completely.
it's going to be amazing for you to have these experiences and have spent this much time in the community that you guys have developed, and then go out into the real world and see how every single one of these experiences, every single one of these training sessions actually has been spot on and aligned with what you're actually going to be doing in the real world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, that's funny that you say that, because that was, again, one of our major I want to call it, this wasn't really a principle, but it was one thing we were trying to convey, and it was, how do we actually translate this? How do we translate this? Because again, I've seen it through people, students who have come in and started to train on equipment. I've seen this look into their they just have this expression where, oh my gosh, I look so dumb doing this. Like, I'm just doing these, thrusting on this spine model and doing on this peanut ball, and they have this UFC dummy. Like, what is this? And what we try to convey is it translates, but you have to strengthen your attention. That's one thing that I try to say as much as possible. We're not really training the adjustment. We're training our attention span. And our attention span is everything, because how strong you can hold your attention on something will dictate how well you can do that thing and how many discoveries you can extract from it. If your attention span is sloppy, chances are, and that comes from like social media and all these little things that we have where we distract ourselves from the intention that we want. If your attention span is sloppy, you're going to have a hard time creating anything. So we talk about attention span and ways to train it through meditation, right? Through meditation, I mean, that could be a whole nother topic, but like, we talk about these tools and how do you actually train your attention span. And one of the ways to really focus on it is to recognize that you have conscious control over it, right? If you don't want it to be into this storyline that doesn't feel great, you have the ability. Attention is malleable. It's formless in that sense, right? Bruce Lee used to say, like, become water, my friends. I truly think he means, like, you have the conscious control over your malleable attention span to either indulge it in this storyline or to take it out and indulge it in another storyline that makes you feel better and more excited. I think that a lot of times it's funny, because sometimes feeling too excited almost feels wrong. Like, people are like, whoa, I feel too good for too long. This just feels weird, right? Not normal. So that's another thing at IAM. We want to bring awareness to what is normal is not always natural, right? What is normal is not natural. And we know this because you can look around at society, right? Our healthcare system clearly is not natural, but it's quote unquote normal. So I forget what we were talking about with that, but that's kind of where
No, it's funny that you said at the beginning, you said you need to strengthen your, I thought you said strengthen your intention, but you said attention. And then you began to talk about how to strengthen your attention span. But as chiropractors, I think the biggest differentiating factor between a chiropractor who's delivering the goods, who's operating at a really high professional level of present time consciousness, but also artistry, is their intention. Is having an intention on what your objective is and not being swayed from that, no matter what the story of the person that you're taking care of is, no matter what's going on in the office or what's going on outside of the office, whether you're expressing health and maybe you have a cold, or whether maybe you had something happen to you with a partner, a relationship, or a friend, or your kid. There's just so many variables going on in our lives, and your ability to stay true to the intention of chiropractic or serve chiropractic and the principle, that I think is like at the heart of what creates consistency in your experience as a professional chiropractor. Which one of the things that I think, being a small business owner, You don't have consistency a lot of the time. Sure, they can make the case that if you have procedures and systems in place, and that you've got everything calculated, that you can create some level of consistency. However, to have that consistency in your adjusting, in your communication, in your knowing who you are and setting an intention before you start serving others, that is, I think, what also comes out of the training that you guys are doing, right? Because you're creating repetitions in who are you and how can you express yourself in an authentic way, when adjusting, when communicating, and like I am, this concept of I am. So it's really cool that you guys have like come to this just by asking questions. And I think that this kaleidoscope of different people, of young women, young men, old men, and everything in between, people that are identifying as other gender types, everybody is showing up to the I am training and still representing themselves and learning about themselves through the process, which truly is what becoming a chiropractor is all about. I mean, this podcast was created because I don't think there's enough context building for prospective students to learn about what are chiropractic students up to and how can they learn from these chiropractic students to like really find themselves and develop a plan for them to have alignment with themselves through a chiropractic program, which, as you know, could be very, very challenging. Can you maybe just share with our viewers, or share with me, what your intentions are for the future after school, being that you're in 12th quarter and that's probably at least in the top 3 most important things you're thinking about?
Yeah. So leaving chiropractic school, my intention is to continue what has already been created, right? Or let's see, to continue abiding by the principles that have led me to, and have led everybody who's been with me to, the creation, right? So not really focus on the creation, but to focus on what is doing it. That's my intention, because the stronger I recognize that, the stronger I tap into that, the greater I know my abilities, I guess, my superpower as a human being, that imagination principle, that power of imagination and concentration, right? I truly believe it's been said many times, but these are the superpowers of the human being. And I got a lot of that from Dr. Joe's work. So I'm going to continue to act as if it's already happened, meaning I already have a practice opened up at the location that I want to open it up at, which is somewhere in Orlando. That practice is seeing, hundreds of people a week, right? That practice is going to be helping people, guide people, facilitate a space where they can walk into and recognize all the patterns, the actions, and the habits that they have in their life that is keeping them small and limited and lacking them from expressing who they really are. A space that can help them recognize that, a space that can help them shed that, right? With love, shed all of those patterns that do not serve them anymore. And we know it doesn't serve you anymore if you're in pain. We know your patterns don't serve you anymore if you find it easier to complain every day than you do to express gratitude. We know your patterns don't serve you anymore, right? If every day you're feeling this sense of, I just feel off or out of alignment, right? So I want to create a space where they can recognize these patterns, shed these patterns, and through the shedding of these patterns, they have an availability of energy to create new patterns, right? Because now that stored potential energy that was once held, we can call it held in the subluxation, they came into, my practice, me and my fiance's practice, we're going to open up together. They've been through this care plan. They've been through the adjustments, and she's going to do Reiki healing, energy healing. I see it already, dude. It's going to be beautiful. They've been through this process, and they've came out on the other side fully empowered. That they're the ones doing the healing. They just needed help to recognize it, to see it. So my goal is to continue with I am training, of course, and to open up a practice. But I see it every day, and I'm acting as though it's already here, and I'm acting as though I already have achieved it. and I'm just kind of waiting for my reality to catch up. It's just, and I think every chiropractic student should try to think this way. It's an offering, really. You don't have to, but if you're not already living as if it already happened, I recommend reading Dr. Joe's work, because that's what helped me, obviously dabbling into the philosophy and the principles of chiropractic. But to not keep it conceptual, to not keep it intellectual, to find a way to experience it and to recognize that, you are your innate intelligence and your intelligence is you. Because if that is felt, then you're feeling infinity, right? You're feeling this thing we call source. You're starting to recognize that you and source and infinity and intelligence, whatever name you want to give it, are actually not separate. You're together, and because of that, have the qualities to create and do whatever you want to do with your life. So
Respect. Yeah, no, we got Louis on the call right now. Just said what up to you and said that you referencing the availability of your energy to create a new pattern is a really dope concept that he aligns with. So salute to you, Louis. So I don't know if you know about Lou, but he started Ether Training Academy. Have you seen that on Instagram by chance? ETA?
yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm glad you've seen it. Yeah, it's pretty dope to just see different students expressing themselves authentically, and people start to become attracted to it because we all need to train, but some of us need motivation from others to get consistent and get that discipline. And people like Lou and people like you have obviously got that determination and that discipline to be the best at what it is that you were put here to do. So anyway, he's just saying what up to you and saying good stuff. He's been listening in on this. Can we kind of just reflect on the culture of students in chiropractic school right now? Do you have any creative solutions that we can put together that you think would attract more students to keep grinding and put in that hard work?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta want it. You gotta want it. And again, it all goes back to seeing it before it happens. A lot of people are waiting for the proof. Once I see that this works, once I see that, recognizing that there's something in me called innate intelligence, because it's one thing that it's not, we can't argue it at this point. There's no arguing that it's there, right? Many people, it's gravity. It doesn't matter. If you get a cut, it will heal. It's there. We know it's there. The thing that we're lacking the knowledge in is that it's also you, right? We know it's there, but we're forgetting that it's also us. So students who are coming in, I would encourage to spend as much time trying to gain a greater relationship with the same intelligence that governs everything in this world, and to recognize that you are not separate from it. And the only way to recognize that is to see everything that you're not, right? And then pay attention to what remains. There's always something that's there when you start to realize what you are not, right? And to go deeper into it, it's there's confirmation here. So, somebody, if you think you're your name, if you think you're your personality or your characteristics or your psychology, if you think you're these things because you've indulged your attention into that storyline for so long that it feels very real that it's you. If somebody stopped calling you your name, if your personality switched, right? If you think you're your job and your job went away, do you go away? No, right? You stay here. You're still present. You're still alive. Existence is still running through you. Even if somebody stopped calling you your name or, those things disappeared. But if the intelligence that governs your body leaves, are you still here? No, right? You leave with it, which is proof that you must be that, because if that leaves, you leave. So I wanted to bring clarity to that because, it starts to bridge the gap between intellectuality, oh, this is just out there, and experiential. You can kind of get a feel for it. Wow, if the intelligence stopped allowing my heart to beat, I wouldn't be here, which is kind of proof that I must be it. Versus what I think I am, which is my name, the traumas, my personalities, my lack beliefs. If those things left, I would still be here, which is proof that I must not be those things. So I think a lot of people are looking for the proof, and my advice would be, you're the proof. The fact that you exist is the proof. The fact that you're living is the proof, right? That's enough. Like the very fact that you're here and existing is proof that you have an intelligence within you, right? I'll say this. I'll say this. I had a really good friend named Christian Rosario, and he's been with me through chiropractic school. He's still here. He said something that changed my life, changed my life in Q2. And I think this will maybe change the life of many chiropractic students who are watching this. We were in Gonstead Club in Q2, and he looks around, he goes, Justin, he's like, and he meant no disrespect by this, but he said, Justin, look at all of these people tapping in the Gonstead. He said, why are we tapping in the Gonstead and not tapping into what he was tapped into? And I was like, oh my gosh, man. And no disrespect, right? Of course, get inspired by these idols, these pioneers of chiropractic, be inspired by them. But if you're giving all of your attention to them, and all of your energy to them, and you're outsourcing it and saying, they're the ones that made it this way, you're failing to recognize that they were tapped into something where they got it from. And they were not born, or you were not born without the same thing that they were born with, right? You guys were born with the same thing. So it's not about the fact that Gonstead had something that you didn't. It's the fact that he had something and he knew how to use it, right? So I think we all need to learn how to use these innate powers that we have and to start to turn them inwards and recognize that if we want to study more about life, we just have to study ourselves, because are we not life? And I think that's huge, man. I think that's huge. And I think chiropractic students can learn that and understand that coming in and throughout their journey in chiropractic school. And it will completely shift the way they leave chiropractic school, getting ready to get into a profession where they can heal and facilitate healing for others.
Well said, well said. As we come to the end of this conversation and we're wrapping up, I'm curious from your point of view, what would being in a pre-chiropractic program leading up to chiropractic school, learning from people such as yourself and really starting to train in the art, train in the mindset, train in the intention, learn about yourself, do for incoming students? Is it a good thing? Is it something that should be practiced and learned about in school? How would it change our profession, just from your point of view, to add this new variable into the pot and mix it in of pre-chiropractic culture, pre-chiropractic students developing and self-expressing in their own way, maybe starting groups like ETA or IM training? Like, what do you think about bringing the vehicle of chiropractic to prospective student audiences?
Yeah. So to answer that, it's like, I think the biggest thing you can get, obviously leaving chiropractic school, is like, why chiropractic? Many people, like, that's everywhere. Why did you choose chiropractic? And what is chiropractic to you? I think that every student should be able to answer that by the time they leave. They should. And they should formulate the discovery to that question while they're in school. But it gets hard because you think about it, you don't really learn about it in school. You learn a lot about the pathologies and everything else, but you don't really learn why chiropractic and what is chiropractic in school. Or at least you learn about it at the end. How can you start learning about it in core one, right when you get there? And I think if you stop trying to ask the question, what is chiropractic to you, and you start to answer the question, what is healthcare to you? What is health to you? Then you get the answer from that question and just apply it to chiropractic, right? It becomes a lot easier because we're more familiar with these words, healthcare and health. And to me, this is my experience. Everybody's going to have a different one. But when I started to do that, when I started to ask what is healthcare to me and what is health to me as a student versus asking what is chiropractic to me, I started to realize that health to me was just recognizing everything that didn't allow me to see that I was already healthy, right? That's what health was to me. And my journey through that realization was, okay, now I'm a little bit more hypersensitive, a little bit more aware to everything that's making me feel unhealthy or out of alignment. And I started to pay more attention to that. And some would call that meditation, right? Just opening up the availability, opening up my attention, being open-minded to the fact that being open-minded to the fact that there may be some things that I'm choosing to believe in that is not reflective of the way it really is. And the reason I'm experiencing the dis-ease or dysfunction in my system is because it's a mechanism. It's a mechanism that innate uses to get you to become aware and pay attention. So I see healthcare now and I'm like, well, what is healthcare? Like, healthcare is designed to numb that signal. Healthcare is designed to what? I get that you have a signal in your body that gets you to pay attention and get you to be empowered and make your own decisions to heal. But we're going to do everything to quiet that knocking sensation. And we're going to say to you, keep using it, keep numbing it until eventually innate goes, you know what? Make it worse. Make the surgical level, because he clearly is not understanding it, right? So the process of self-awareness, you have to apply it to yourself first of all. And what it does is that it catches these manifestations of dis-ease in the subtle before it has time to manifest in the physical. Can I curse on here? Okay. It catches you. I like this saying, but it allows you to be better able to take control over your life before shit hits the fan. And shit hitting the fan is like, okay, now I have GERD. Okay, now I have IBS. Okay, now I have this heart palpitation. Okay, now I have this ulcer, right? That's shit hitting the fan. That's innate going, I've warned you about this so many times in the subtle. I've warned you about this, but you kept deciding to distract yourself. You kept deciding to move away. You kept deciding to run. You kept deciding to hide. So now I have no choice but to make this highlighted. I have no choice but to amplify this signal and to produce some sort of dysfunction or pathology. Now it's your option, and innate's like, I really hope you don't go to the doctor. I hope you go to a chiropractor. I hope you don't go to a medical doctor and get a painkiller, because it's just going to make this process worse. And you cannot outrun me. I will always get you in the end. You have to pay attention at some point. I think that's why people have these life-changing moments when they have a heart attack, right? It's like that thing that they were threatened. And Nate was threatened to such a degree that now they're like, oh my gosh, I have to change the way I think and the way I live, right? And I think when practitioners, when healthcare providers, when chiropractic students start to practice self-awareness for what it is, they're better at catching it in the subtle before it manifests in the physical within their own life, so that they can show up for the community of their patients and people they're caring for, and to catch everything in the subtle before it manifests in the physical for them. And that's a gift that, I mean, that's like God's work, right? Like, that's a vessel for God's work. And that's a gift that can, like, you could just keeps giving. So that's my answer to how self-awareness more applicable.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you going deep with me. There's this concept Vipassana. I don't know if you know about the organization worldwide, but translates to mean to observe. And it's all about you observing your breath, observing the sensations, the subtleties of sensation that you experience when your mind is able to consciously perceive a thought. Basically, you take in information from the environment, your mind says, I like it, I don't like it, on a subconscious level, and then you have a sensation. Your ability to start acknowledging and becoming aware of that sensation and not reacting to it, but just observing it, is that space that you create that allows you to take the subtleties of life and not allow them to get the best of you, not allow them to throw you off what they call your equanimity. And you want to create an equanimous mind, an equanimous way of living where you don't get too high, you don't get too low. You're able to observe things and not react to them, but just acknowledge them and consciously observe them. And I think that's kind of the message of how to meditate that's been propagated around the world by Gautama, the original Buddha. And that's kind of the self-awareness that I hear you talking about when you talk about how students need to practice self-awareness first, so that then they can move into chiropractic and all the different new concepts. So yes, new skills. You mentioned Reiki and your fiance practicing Reiki. That's another one where it's acknowledging the subtleties of energy that you can control within yourself, but also of others, and not having other people's energy get the best of you. That's another skill, which is great to have. So Anyway, I appreciate you taking time to chop it up with me today and just shine a light for any students that are going into chiropractic school. You're in your 12th quarter. You're allowing students to see what somebody who's really like done the work. You've gone deep as a student, and I'm excited to see what you got in your future when you get out of school. So it's great to meet you and connect with you and build with you. And if there's any way that we could continue to have collaborative dialogue on behalf of the movement that you're involved with and the movement that I'm involved with, and we could see ourselves as being part of the same movement, that's what we're here to do, is build bridges and create connections and just fuel the fire of being a chiropractor that, you know, sees this as a movement. This is a chiropractic movement to really shift the consciousness of humanity, to support groups of students and people and in places that they've never really been reached with this message. So I appreciate you, bro. Lou said much success in Orlando, brother. He said that to you.
Appreciate you. Thank you too, Dr. Ben. Man, thank you for the space and the platform. Like, dude, I recognize this as, you know, you're really getting to see where chiropractic is headed when you start to allow students to come in, right? So you get that perfect blend of where chiropractic is going, but you also get the, you know, that blend of doctors coming on here and showing you where chiropractic is at, right? And it's so beautiful to see, and it's so expansive. It's so expansive just to have a platform and space for students and doctors that come up here and go deeper and express themselves into the art, the science, and the philosophy of chiropractic. So I am forever grateful for this. Dude, I was so excited just to getting the chance to be on here. I appreciate it. I appreciate it, man. So, dude, thank you.